In Formula One, dynasties rarely die quietly, and yet, what we're witnessing at Red Bull Racing is not a quiet decline. It's a public reckoning. The warning lights aren't flickering anymore, they're blaring. Sirens, smoke, and at the center of the inferno stands Christian Horner, the long-serving commander of the Bulls, now teetering on the brink of his own undoing. Not by accident, not by scandal, but by power struggle. Yes, this is a war from within. Not the FIA, not Ferrari, not some rival team picking at the empire's edges. It's Red Bull versus Red Bull. And Max Verstappen's silence is now louder than any engine. Let's get one thing straight. The most dominant driver in modern F1 isn't demanding a new contract, a bigger salary, or even a faster car. He's demanding leadership change, not upgrades, not staff, not PR spins. He wants a restructuring of power at the top. He wants Christian Horner either out or cut down to size. Let that sink in. The four-time world champion, the man who has scored 155 of Red Bull's 162 points this season, is essentially issuing a corporate ultimatum. It's him or me. And guess who's backing him? Not just his father, Jos Verstappen, but the very architects of Red Bull's original rise. Helmut Marko, the Austrian faction. Even the Thai ownership, long seen as Horner loyalists, are reportedly no longer blocking talks of restructuring. Jos didn't mince his words. There is tension here while Horner remains in position. The team is in danger of being torn apart. It can't go on the way it is. It will explode. That's not a warning. That's a declaration. We've seen teams implode before. We've seen drivers walk away. But rarely has a driver with this much influence, this many championships, and this long left on his contract, 2028, made their dissatisfaction this clear, this loud, without even speaking directly. And that's the twist. Max isn't talking. Not really. Not about the drama. Not about the Mercedes rumors. Not about the exit clause in his contract. He's dodging the questions like a seasoned diplomat, deflecting with, "I don't think we need to talk about that," or "It's the same answer as last year." But make no mistake, his silence is intentional, tactical. He's not denying the rumors, he's letting them breathe, he's letting them pressure. And as Toto Wolff paces quietly in the shadows, you can bet your last Red Bull can that the Mercedes boss has already prepared his offer. Now, about that exit clause. If Verstappen falls below third in the drivers' standings by the end of July, a window opens, a legitimate contract loophole that could allow him to leave. After the catastrophe at the Austrian GP, where Max was out on lap 1 and now trails Oscar Piastri by 61 points, that scenario is no longer far-fetched. It's feasible, it's frightening, and it's fast approaching. Behind closed doors, Red Bull isn't laughing this off. They're panicking. They're watching their technical department hemorrhage key figures. Dan Fallows to Aston Martin, Rob Marshall to McLaren, Jonathan Wheatley to Audi, and most devastatingly, Adrian Newey, the genius behind their era of domination. You don't lose that kind of brain trust and stay bulletproof. You fracture. And Horner's defense? We didn't suddenly become idiots overnight. Maybe not. But when your car drops pace, your driver threatens to leave, and the fans boo you at a global launch event, that's not a misstep. That's a crisis. Let's revisit that. Horner was booed, loudly, publicly, at the F1 London season opener. And who watched from the VIP section? None other than Red Bull GmbH's Oliver Mintzlaff, the man tasked with overseeing Red Bull's sporting identity post-Matiskits. A man whose patience, sources say, is wearing thin. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a racing problem. It's a branding problem. And when your superstar driver is hinting at defection, your second car is basically a moving billboard, and your boss is fending off public humiliation. That's not F1. That's bad business. You want numbers? Here's one. If you removed Max Verstappen from the equation entirely and doubled the points from Red Bull's second car, they would be second to last in the constructors' standings. Only Alpine would be worse. Let that land. The team that once ruled Formula One like an empire would be irrelevant, statistically, competitively, commercially, without Verstappen. So what's the fix? Fire Horner? Share his power? Split the team leadership into compartments: racing, engines, marketing? Insiders are already floating names: Peter Bayer, Andreas Seidel, even the now legally challenged Oliver Oakes. But here's the harder question. If Horner doesn't step down, if he refuses to share the throne, does Red Bull risk losing the very driver that keeps them in the spotlight? And if that happens, what happens to the empire? Let's be brutally honest. If Red Bull loses Max Verstappen, the damage won't be theoretical. It'll be mathematical, psychological, existential. And that's not just media hyperbole. It's cold, hard arithmetic. This season alone, Verstappen accounts for 95.6% of Red Bull's total points. The second car, once piloted by names like Perez and Ricciardo, now barely scores at all. Remove Max, and the mighty Bulls plummet to near bottom of the constructors' table. That's not decline. That's annihilation. So imagine being Christian Horner. You wake up every morning knowing that the sport's most valuable driver wants change and might walk. You see headlines, hear paddock whispers, and watch the Uvidia family start to flinch. You feel the air thinning. Your legacy becomes your liability. Because for all of Horner's brilliance, his charisma, his management chops, his 21 years of consistency, there's one thing he hasn't adapted to: the end of the one-man show. In an era where McLaren, Mercedes, even Ferrari now function with decentralized leadership, Horner still clutches all the reins. Racing operations, technical development, RB powertrains, PR strategy. He's at the helm of it all. But that's precisely what Verstappen and his camp want to dismantle. They want a distributed structure, a modern F1 organization, and that begins with one word: humility. Yet Horner won't back down easily. He's built too much. He's weathered too many storms. And in many ways, Red Bull is Horner. Strip him of power, and you don't just change a role, you rewrite the DNA of the most dominant F1 team of the hybrid era. So the standoff escalates. Red Bull's Austrian contingent, Marko and co., want reform. The Thai majority owners, once blind loyalists, are reportedly warming to compromise. Jos Verstappen fans the flames with statements that are less concerned father and more shadow director. And all the while, Toto Wolff circles quietly, arms open, engine deals ready, waiting for the tipping point. Let's talk about that tipping point. July is now critical. If Verstappen finishes below P3, his infamous performance clause activates. It's not just a hypothetical anymore. He's now trailing Piastri by 61 points. George Russell is only 9 behind. And if another DNF strikes, or if McLaren continue to dominate, the scenario becomes real. And Mercedes? They're ready. Of course they're ready. Wolff would be negligent not to explore every scenario. He won't say it, but the door is open, and the terms are likely already whispered behind padded doors. George Russell remains loyal, for now. He's insisted Mercedes is his first choice. He's even joked that he's not researching the market because he feels safe. But what happens if Verstappen becomes available? No one is untouchable in that scenario. Except maybe Andrea Kimi Antonelli, Mercedes' teenage prodigy. Promoting Verstappen might delay his stardom, or force him into a second year that's filled with awkward development. That's a complication, yes, but when a 4-time champion knocks, you don't just let him in. You roll out the red carpet. And Verstappen? He won't say it out loud, but insiders suggest he has more faith in a Mercedes or Honda power unit than Red Bull's own 2026 engine project. That's telling. That's damning. It means trust, not just performance, is at stake. And then there's the ultimate irony. After Abu Dhabi 2021, after that controversial historic night, Verstappen looked Horner in the eye and said, "Can we do this for another 10-15 years together?" It was euphoric, emotional, eternal. and now. That quote has aged into tragedy, because just 3.5 seasons later, Verstappen won't even say, "I'm staying." He won't give Red Bull that courtesy, not because he's being coy, but because the love, the certainty, the alignment, it's all gone. And Horner knows it. Even he has admitted, perhaps unintentionally, that contracts aren't worth much once the love is gone. Those are not the words of a confident man. They're the words of someone watching his empire crumble in slow motion. So what now? We head into the summer break, not with answers, but with tension thick enough to slice with a carbon fiber front wing. The team must decide, restructure, and potentially save Verstappen, or stand firm and risk collapse. And if they delay, if they stall, then we watch history repeat itself. A dominant team unable to adapt, a superstar driver walking away, an empire trading championships for pride. Because here's the gut punch: no matter how many wins Horner has orchestrated, no matter how many trophies Red Bull has claimed, Formula One isn't about what you've done. It's about what you're doing now. And right now, Red Bull is doing one thing: imploding.